again, I don't use the term third eye. I don't use the whole pineal gland thing. I believe it can lead people into an area of deception because it's also tied with other things, and you've got to be very careful to be discerning in these things. Now, does God want us to be able to discern? Absolutely. So we train our senses to discern. He's not going to just turn it on or off.
Right.
That's because that's not relational, and people don't want to go through the relationship of learning to see. They just want to see. But you learn to perceive the Father's desires, hearts, and the things from the Father's perspective by spending time with the Father, not by having something open. So we're really talking about an ability to discern through not just seeing visually, but perceiving, knowing what is going on in that way. And therefore, there are things that go along with that we need to grow in as well. Maturity. We need, because some people start seeing things and they'll be totally freaked out and they'll run a mile. So, because they're not mature enough to handle what they're seeing, or they're still not deconstructed. So what they're seeing, they're going to interpret through the filters of their soul, which isn't good either. So essentially, just all we need to do is encourage people to just keep walking with the Father, growing in maturity in their knowledge of him and their knowledge of themselves, and everything will open up. Desiring to be able to perceive and understand more is not wrong, but you've got to ask, what's the motive of that desire? Do they want to be seers and therefore known as seers? Because that's a mixture of motives. I would, in those things, I would sort of be a bit probably naughty by asking sort of, okay, well, why do you want to see so much? What's driving you to want this ability? Thinking that suddenly it's going to be switched on and they'll be able to see everything. What's behind that? And, and then I would always encourage people to look at, well, God wants to give you or enable you to be able to see everything you need to see, but you need to be mature enough to be able to handle what you see. Therefore, how deep do you know the Father's heart and love? Because those are all the questions which relate to what opens our abilities is relational connection to the Father and his heart that enables us to be able to perceive through his eyes, not just have our eye open so we can have all of this information that's coming from a spiritual realm, which a lot of people just aren't wise enough or mature enough to be able to handle. So for me, I don't use the third eye or the pineal gland thing, because I think it becomes a protocol rather than a relational process, because that will open my third eye. Well, it does talk about the eyes of our heart being enlightened. We do have abilities for our spirit to perceive. But if we're not one, spirit, soul, and body, then you get a whole disconnect between what you're seeing in the spirit and what you're receiving in the soul. So there's a whole lot of work needs to be doing to bring us into a state of oneness, so we can also be able to perceive in the right way. So personally, it's not something I use as terminology. I think it can create for some a wrong understanding of it. I would just help wanting to focus on having a relationship with the Father in which you can know his heart. And I use know his heart rather than see, hear, just to know his heart, to sense his heart. Then that is going to be the motivation for your heart, because what you see the Father doing, and again, using the word see as a perception rather than a vision, so you will know the Father's heart, you will have that perception, and that is going to be that which guides your life, because you're only going to do what you see the Father doing or know the Father's heart about. That's going to keep you safe from pursuing a whole lot of stuff and getting into a whole lot of trouble, because you're going beyond the level of maturity you've got, because you want to see, and like other people see, no one knows what anyone else sees. It's impossible to know what someone else sees, or even whether they're using the word correctly.
Wow.
I mean, perception or vision or intuition or sensing or knowing. because most people will use the word see, and you don't know what they're actually seeing, and you can never know, because I can describe to you right now in great detail something that I am engaging with in the realms of heaven, but I'm not seeing it. I'm just there. It's not a vision of me watching third person while I'm doing something in heaven. I'm just there, you know. But it's not a vision. It's not a visionary thing, because I'm just there and I have the perception and knowledge of what I'm doing there. But I don't see it as a vision of me doing it. So we've got to be careful in the language we use to help people understand that it's not all about being a seer from a prophetic seeing perspective and having great sort of visions and Hollywood production visions. And those that do, a lot of them I found didn't have a clue of what they were seeing, because they wanted someone to interpret what they were seeing, because they weren't wise enough to interpret it themselves. So, you know, at the end of the day, let's keep walking into maturity, and it will all open up, and the Father will unveil and equip us in every way we need to be equipped. Then we don't have to start pursuing something, perhaps with a mixture of motives. Hi everyone, we're starting a Patreon page, patreon.com/freedomarc, and we would like to invite you to partner with us in taking the message of God's unconditional love, limitless grace, triumphant mercy to a bigger global audience.